It is spring break at the university, and that means usually I have more unstructured time than normal. And I want to start there this week because what I did with that time, or more accurately, what I noticed about myself when that time showed up, turned out to be this week's whole episode. Every journey starts with a choice, and mine is a bet. For 1 year, I'm gambling on energy over strategy. No more forcing and no pushing. Just the courage to show up and see what happens when reality becomes my playground. This isn't a podcast. It's a real-time experiment in the lab of my life. Welcome to the bet. So my default, whenever I get a nice little pocket of open time, is to fill it up, usually with something that feels productive. I am usually spending that time planning out a new offer, or mapping out some kind of launch that I'm going to do, or figuring out a new content strategy. So it's like my equilibrium in my nervous system has been calibrated to be busy for as long as I can remember. And I know this about myself. So this last week, I made a choice intentionally to not do that. I let myself have what I would genuinely call unproductive days. Just days where I didn't do anything directly related to building revenue or managing my company. So I was researching trips and vacations. I was letting myself go to Pilates in the middle of the afternoon instead of first thing in the morning, and had a couple of really nice long breakfasts with Mike, like even longer than normal. And something interesting happened in all of that space, or I guess a few somethings. The first thing I noticed was a flash of resentment at a woman that I had never met. It's my second little helping of resentment. I remember I shared a few episodes back, something like this happened. So this last Saturday, I was at Pilates. This lovely woman comes in, not much older than me. It was the first time I had seen her there. She had a rockin' hot Pilates body, loved her already. And the instructor asked her if she was new. And she said, "Oh no, I do Pilates all the time. We just come here in the winters. This is our winter house." And I felt something, not at her, because Lord knows I live in an area where tons of people come to spend their winters here. It's just beautiful here. And this woman was delightful, but something emotional moved through me that I can only describe as this feeling of, why does she get that and I don't? Like a very low level irritation toward her life circumstances, which is so not me. I am not usually a person who just walks around resenting what other people have. It's just not my basic wiring. I am usually one celebrating what everyone else has. So when I felt that come up, I noticed it, tucked it away. And then second thing, there was a cruise situation. So Mike and I have been looking at trips, our next big trip. At the beginning of 2025, I put on my vision board one of these luxury cruises. So I've been researching those, and I found one that appeared to match everything he and I had talked about. It ticked every single box. I told him about it. I announced it with this clarity that I had found the one. We were going to start in northern Italy, go down the whole Italian coastline, swing up to southern France, and then end up in Barcelona. I was done. And then I am not kidding, within maybe 2 minutes, I started poking holes in it. I started talking about how much the airfare was going to be and the timing of it. And maybe Alaska would make more sense because of everything that's going on in the world. And maybe we should look at a totally different itinerary instead. And Mike brought it up this morning at breakfast. He said, "You sounded completely certain When you announced that to me, it was like the decision has been made. And then you immediately started talking yourself out of it. So what happened? And our conversation, the one that followed, is what I want to give you today, because he named a pattern that he has noticed in me for a while. He said, I can tell when you are bumping up against something in your life because one of two things starts happening. You either start waffling on things that you were clear about to begin with, or you start feeling upset or resentful or feeling just depleted and dejected, for lack of a better term, that other people have the things that you want. And why isn't that happening for you? And both of those things had happened in less than 24 hours. So anytime you can identify a pattern in your life, talking about any kind of repeating behavior or any way of being that keeps showing up, that is not some character flaw that you're supposed to work on. It's kind of a fresh take here. I think that is intelligence. That is your patterns, and your patterns are data. And specifically, they're data about where your internal thermostat is currently set. We all have a thermostat when it comes to our identity, who we believe ourselves to be. In other words, we have a floor and a ceiling for what we allow ourselves to have or to want or to feel or to experience, the things we think we are allowed to have, the things we think we are allowed to deserve. Most people are not even aware of their thermostat. They don't really know where their limits are. They just live inside of this thermostat. And our patterns, these recurring behaviors or beliefs that seem irrational or frustrating, those are how the thermostat regulates you back to your set point whenever you start drifting outside of it. And it happens in both directions on the thermostat. So waffling is one of mine. I've known I've been a waffler for a long time, but I used to frame it differently. I used to think that waffling meant I was being thorough. It's being measured. Intelligent people think things through. They don't just leap at the first thing that feels good. They consider the outcomes and they weigh their options before they make a careful choice. And then I remember, this wasn't that long ago, maybe a couple of years ago, I had just had this realization that I didn't want to be that way because I looked at the actual cost of that. When I look at how much time I spent thinking about things, I could do something. I could actually take the action and do it 10 times over before I would think my way to making a single decision. Like I can't even tell you the amount of times I have overthought something. So the waffling doesn't actually protect me from making any kind of bad choice. It was eating away the time of my life, just consuming time that I could spend doing things. So underneath all that quote unquote careful consideration is really something much simpler. I was popping my own balloon. I would get genuinely excited about something, feel a pull to go and do it, and then immediately reach for the needle, the pin, to pop it. I would introduce doubt before someone else could. And it is just a way of keeping my desire small enough to feel safe within my little thermostat. It's the way the thermostat brings the temperature back down. Now, I didn't realize that my resentment has been working on the opposite end of the thermostat. I think that most people would think the conventional thing to do when you start feeling resentful is to focus on being more grateful for the life you already have. I think we can agree that would be the conventional advice here. But that, in my case anyway, I don't think that's what the resentment is representing. I don't think the resentment is asking me to be more grateful. The resentment I've been feeling lately is newer. It's a new feeling for me. And I am reading it as evidence that my floor has moved. My bottom of what I am willing to tolerate in my life has shifted. The part of me that had a little emotional flair about that woman with the winter house here, right? I'm not ungrateful for what I have. Like, that's the part of me who is recognizing I have spent years doing the deepest kind of inner work. I have spent so much time actively building a skill set that goes far beyond what I am currently being compensated for. And that part of me is feeling resentment because she's no longer available for a life that doesn't match what she knows herself to be worth, what she knows herself to be capable of doing. She's tired of watching that. Her floor has moved. So the thermostat is showing me that my bottom set point has shifted. You know, when the dashboard light comes on, we don't pull over the car and start crying because the light came on, right? It's just a signal. And that's what these emotions are, right? Our thermostat set points are signals coming on the dashboard. So we just read the intelligence that they're telling you. What I had to sit with was this. My set point has been raising, and it's been raising deliberately. I've been working on this. I didn't realize that this would be the outcome of that. I didn't realize this little feelings of resentment would be the product of that. But the identity work that I've been doing, the thought work, the emotional practices, the daily work of installing the belief system that matches the life I actually want to be living. And the more that raises, right, the more that increases, the louder this part of me is getting. It's the part of me that knows exactly what she wants, and she's got zero patience for the kind of thinking that says we don't get that, or we have to have it differently, or we should just be grateful for what we already have and stop wanting more. That part of me is not, this graceful, quiet, polite little being. She's got a voice and it's kind of loud. And so when she sees me behaving in ways that shrink or contract the potential and the possibility of the life that she knows we're supposed to be living, she wants to act out. Okay, so I can recognize this from younger versions of me. Younger versions of me handled this situation very differently. There was a period of my life where when that part of me that knew I was capable of more, that when I would just shove that part of me down too much or suppress her too much, I would blow things up. That's when I would blow my life up. Like relationships, circumstances, or just create enough chaos in my life that it would force that part of me to come out and prove what I'm made of. That was the only way that Laura from decades ago knew how to let that part of herself out, create a crisis, and then demand that the strong part of me come forward and take charge. And she'd come out swinging and we'd rebuild and I'd feel powerful again for a while. I don't want to operate by that mechanism anymore. It has a cost I'm no longer willing to pay. I don't need to do that anymore. The goal for me, the shift I'm working with now, is to give that part of me the room to move and to act with my full cooperation before she feels the need to make an explosion out of things. That's what all the inner work I'm doing is really about. It's not to make myself more zen or more patient or more grateful. It is to keep raising the floor of what I believe I'm capable of so that the gap between what I think I deserve and what I'm actually living doesn't get so wide that something has to blow. Hope that makes sense for you guys out there. So there's two things I think here that are worth taking from this week. The first is to get familiar with your own signals. What do the ends and the edges of your thermostat look like? The waffling might show up differently for you. Right? It might not be like you obsess over which trip you're going to take or think about all the details. Maybe it's in a project that you want to go for and you don't really let yourself take action on it. Or the opportunity you talk yourself out of before you even tell anyone else about it. And maybe you don't have resentment about a woman at Pilates, right? And maybe it's something you scroll past on social media and it just leaves a kind of residue that you don't really feel great about. Maybe you don't even want to admit that it's there. When I felt that little surge at that woman with the winter house, the question I eventually landed on wasn't, what's wrong with me? Why am I feeling that way? It was, what part of me isn't letting myself have what I actually want? I don't want her specific life, but what does the freedom that she represents feel like to me? And am I allowing myself to have access to that? And what am I believing right now that's making me think I can't have that? That's the question that really will move something for you. And the second kind of takeaway from all of this is about decisions. Mike pointed out that I have a real habit of conflating or collapsing decisions with their consequences into the same moment. In an ideal world, I would be able to make a decision about what I want, totally independent of what it is I think I will have to do in order to make it happen. So being able to make a decision independent of what you think will have to happen once you make that decision. We start thinking about all the things. If we make that decision, then this is going to happen or that's going to happen. So making a choice about what I want gets immediately loaded down with the weight of everything I think it's going to cost me, of everything I think I'll have to give up, everything I think I'm going to have to figure out afterwards. And all of that is just noise. It's not the actual decision. The decision is, what do I want? And then once you decide you want it, then you say, okay, what does this cost? And what is my plan? Those are all separate decisions. And I have been really struggling with finding a way to make the actual decision without thinking about everything that gets attached to it. A quick example of this is when I think about leaving my role as a professor at the university or scaling way back on that, I can't detach something like, yeah, but they contribute a huge chunk into my retirement. Like that to me is part of the decision. Instead of just thinking, do I actually like that job? Is that how I want to spend my time every day? And then is that a yes or is that a no? And then if that's a no, then you can think about the other thing. Okay. So I just can't help but add in all of the things that I think contribute to that decision to the actual decision. So I'm practicing that on much smaller things right now. This trip, planning a trip, that's practicing it. Making a clean choice about what cruise I actually want to go on or what trip I actually want to go on without attaching it to what I think it's going to cost, like the airfare and the hassle and the world events going on right now. So there you have it. Tomorrow starts a new clinical rotation at the university. So we're starting our new quarter, and I've decided to use this time to really pay attention to how I feel about the job itself with real honesty. And just let the conclusion be how I actually feel about the work I'm doing every day. I want to notice what percentage of this work I genuinely love and what percentage is something else. Because the professor decision, I felt it hanging over me for a while now. And it's it's one of those things I feel like that could be detracting time. It's taking time from what I might otherwise be doing. I'm making that decision a lot harder than maybe it needs to be. So that's where I'm starting, taking the next 10 weeks of this quarter to really tune into that. Okay, that's all I have for you on week 27. I have some other tactical things and decisions I've made, but this episode I think is long enough as it is. So maybe I'll talk about those next week. Always good to check in with you all. And I hope something in this episode is useful for you to move yourself forward. Useful to give yourself some clarity, useful to give yourself some contrast against what it is you see yourself doing, and to take action and know that as long as you stay in the game, you will win. The only way you don't win is if you quit. So continue to show up to whatever it is you're building. I am getting more and more evidence that what I'm doing is working. It was actually an amazing week in terms of that. I didn't even get around to sharing that because I guess I'll have to share it at my next check-in. But the tide really changed this week in terms of like energetic response from things. So everything's going really well. We're catching our patterns. We're growing our thermostat. And I'm sending you all out there who are in this thing together with me so much love. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And go bet on yourself.